And we are live. All right, welcome, Julie. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm really excited to get to know you and learn about you and what you do, what you've been up to in the world. So, to kick off, even before you introduce yourself, I love to start with this question. This week, what is it like to be you?
This week, what is it like to be me? Well, we're celebrating Veterans Day here in the U.S., which I realize is not true around the world. And I've lived in several places around the world, like we were talking about. So what it's like to be me this week is I'm being very inspired by courageous action. That's one of my values as a human being and as an entrepreneur and as a person who likes to create transformation for other business owners. So I'm being inspired by courageous action this week.
Amazing. I love that answer. That's really awesome. Courageous
Great.
actions are always like, there are some people who we can look at and like, wow, that's like, how did you even, you know? And it's definitely played a major role in my life and in the decisions that I've made. So yeah, amazing. So who
Yeah.
are you? What's your story?
So my story, who am I? I am a woman who has been, I was an educator for about 25 years. I worked in higher education at the university level, building programs, serving and supporting students from undergraduate to master's degree and higher level degrees. And then I got a master's degree myself and have worked as a school counselor for 20 years. And I decided to leave that role to pursue becoming an entrepreneur, to pursue my dream of working as a photographer. And one of the things that I didn't realize, another one of my values besides courageous action is, making a difference, having an influence and an impact on others. And I didn't know how I could do that with photography. I've been passionate about photography since I was very young. And yeah, when I moved into entrepreneurship, I've been able to do that and continue to make a difference for people, create influence and impact and income, a great income as well. And then have moved in that entrepreneurial space to be a coach and consultant for service people who want to have more impact, influence, and income. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, nice. Sounds like a great journey and like a full, yeah. How was it being in school and being like an educator in university?
So I loved it. I worked with amazing people. I had great bosses. I had great colleagues. And I really was able to serve people. At the university level, it's a time of a lot of transition and a lot of things are changing. And so I was really able to serve, to use my skills. I also, part of my time in higher education, I was able to, like, I had students working for me. And so they were able to develop their skills and that kind of thing as they moved on. So it was very, very rewarding.
Mm, okay. How would you say that traditional education has changed or has evolved over the years? And has it changed at all? Does it need to change these days, or what's happening over there?
Well, that's a loaded question. That is a big, big question, especially with, in the US, we have a new president coming into office in January. And there is a lot of fear about that education will change and that education is changing. And my take on that is that during any big times of change, there are opportunities. There are opportunities for people. And so, whether or not people are educators, students, families who have children in the school system, there are going to be some changes, and that's going to create a lot of opportunities for a lot of different people. And a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You said that. So were you a professor or like specifically
Actually,
teaching students or no?
no, no. So
Mm.
when I was at the university level, I worked in program development.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I worked to develop programs and I grew them. Like that's been another thing that I've done. I grew these programs from one of the programs that I worked in enrollment management or admission. So when students are applying to get into college, I started as part-time,
Mm-hmm.
working part-time, and I came in the evenings, and there were stacks of paper, 18 inches high, that the employees, the student employees, would take off of us, take a stack of paper, and they would call prospective students. By the time I left, just a few years later, I had developed with another with a tech person. I didn't do the tech part, but we had developed a whole online system so that we were
Okay.
tracking the people who were called. We were calling them at really specific times. So it
Got
was
it.
pretty cool. Yeah, yeah, that
Okay,
was
so that kind of system. Okay,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's awesome.
And then I did work at the middle school and high school levels, so grades 6 through 12, really helping students, get all of the. I was a school counselor, so I earned a master's degree while I was working in higher education, which is required to be a school counselor in the U.S. So I worked in that for almost 20 years, and loved being able to have an impact and influence with students and help them choose their path.
So, what exactly did you do as a school counselor?
So I was responsible for the social, emotional, and academic well-being of about 300 students every year. So it's a lot, there are a lot of different components of that, which, has served me moving into being an entrepreneur because there are lots of different hats to wear, lots of different things to learn, lots of different,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, lots of different areas. So.
yeah. Okay. Do you have, would you say that you have any like main insights or something that's stuck to you from that time of consulting students in, you said social, mental, and academic well-being?
Yeah, social, emotional, and academic well-being. And if you imagine those three circles coming together in a Venn diagram, in the middle is where we wanted all of the students to be. So
Mm-hmm.
the social emotional piece was sometimes it was developing programming that all students would receive. For example, transitioning into high school from middle school can be very stressful. Usually
Yeah,
it's a lot. The school that I worked in, it was a much larger setting. Students would be stressed out about it. So there were those pieces. The academic piece, so there were programmatic things that we and my team would build. And then there were also, individual counseling with stressful situations, everything from, academics to struggling with their relationship with their parents to balancing work, to very severe mental health issues that some of the students had.
mm. Were you also involved in the mental health and consulting and helping people with mental health issues?
Yes, a lot of that. In fact, quite a lot of that. And I would work with them, and if they got to a certain level where they needed long-term support, there was somebody also in my building that I could refer them to. But sometimes they didn't want to go see that person, and sometimes they would,
Yeah.
continue to have a conversation with me about it.
Okay.
Which, yeah,
Yeah, this is very interesting. I'm just gonna point out. I had a conversation on a podcast like this yesterday with somebody who has been a physician, like a general care doctor for 35 years, and he said many of the people came with basically just being stressed, and then the stress or the anxiety and all of this would show up as physical symptoms as well. And he said about 75% of the people that I would recommend to go see a mental health professional, they would not go. Only 25% of people who would actually go to take that more seriously and explore that. I'm like, that's really interesting that so many people who would need help even are recommended by their doctor and they still don't go.
Do you
And so
know do you know what was the population of people that he worked with? Was it high school students? Was
no,
it
no, no,
young
no,
adults,
no. No,
older adults?
it was adults.
Interesting. Yeah,
It
that
was,
is interesting.
yeah. And then we talked a little bit about maybe it's like the stigma, and he shared his opinion on why he thinks that is. But I'm also curious about, have you noticed any patterns? Because this is something that I care really I care about. I used to get bullied in school. I had severe social anxiety. I got really
Yeah.
bad depression when I was in, I guess, the equivalent of like, I'm not sure what you call elementary school and middle school, probably. And
Okay.
then
Yeah.
when I
Where
moved
did you
into high
go
school,
to school?
oh, I'm from the Czech Republic, so
Okay. Okay.
we have a little bit of a different system. So that's why I mean like an equivalent of that. It was just a normal like primary, elementary school, whatever you would call that in English, in my
Yeah.
town. Um, and so yeah, there obviously there's problems like this everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But what I was curious about, like, have you noticed any patterns maybe, or any something that the people who struggled the most kind of had in common, or something that caused most of the problems compared to the students that didn't have um or that didn't struggle so much?
Yeah. I think really what it comes down to is having a support system. Like you said, for if a physician, and this you're talking about a different situation, but having a person that they can talk to, having a way that they can work through those things. And a lot of times I would just, so not having the, shame or unwillingness to work with it. I feel like the people who had support and were willing to try things, again, just like us as entrepreneurs, people who are willing to try journaling or therapy or even, taking a walk outside for 20 minutes a day,
Mm,
affirmations, there's so many ways to get support that don't necessarily have to look like therapy, but they can be so, so helpful.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I think Yeah, I think you're spot on. I've been working with people with social anxiety specifically for about 4 years now, and I
Yeah.
definitely see this as a, and obviously that's what's helped me as well. I've never really been to traditional therapy with it. I've never taken medication. Um,
Yeah.
it was mostly from my parents' Eastern European mindset. That's not real. Just get over it, which isn't the best.
Ah,
Which isn't the best, but it somewhat worked out. I had to go and do all my own research, and I studied practical psychology for myself online and all of this.
well,
And yeah,
it does
it's these
seem
little
like
things.
it worked out. It seems
Oh
like it
yeah,
worked.
oh yeah.
So that's
I've I've definitely been able to completely. Maybe there's like some remnants of it sometimes. Um,
yeah,
but I've done public speaking. I've done free hugs in about 7 countries around the world, and
that's
I've helped probably dozens, maybe close to 100 people personally, with
that's
social
great.
anxiety at this point. So um, yeah, for me it definitely turned out very well. I know many people who don't get so lucky in the early ages, and they don't discover all of these simple but really powerful principles, I think, that I did. I
Yeah,
literally Googled how to be happy, right? And I had like a phone, and I would just Google how to be happy, or what is social anxiety. Oh, I think I have that. Okay, how can I overcome social anxiety? How can I build confidence? How can I do this? Because
that's great.
nobody ever taught me, and there was nothing in my parents. Obviously, they didn't know. They thought it's not real, and my and the school, we never really talked about anything mental health, anything like this, especially in, I remember like the earlier years. And then maybe that's changed now a little bit, because I think when we were in maybe eighth, ninth grade or something, the school brought in like a counselor, like maybe somebody like you, um,
Yeah,
that was there to provide support, I think, and help out. But most of my time in that school specifically, that didn't exist. Like she wasn't there at all,
yeah.
and so that I'm thinking as like a positive sign, hopefully,
I
that
hope
you
so. Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully these things are evolving. Let's maybe shift a little bit towards entrepreneurship. How was it for you to start your own business, and how was the transition from being like a in a more so like a corporate setting, or like a work setting, to just being self-employed?
Well, talk about social anxiety. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at the
Uh-huh.
same time. You know, I went from being in a very structured system of, serving this many people, doing this day to day, to, okay, what do I do to grow a business? Much less, to grow a business that is aligned with the person I am, and
Mm,
it really can make an impact, and have time and money freedom, and be able to make a difference, and all of those things in the world. So again, exhilarating, terrifying, terrifying, exhilarating.
yeah. How did you start? You said, "Oh, okay, now I have a business. I don't know what to do." Did you get a mentor? Did you get courses? Did you go to
Yes.
school for business, or?
Well, interestingly, yeah. So I live in a town where there's a university, and they have, like I mentioned, I have a master's degree. And I think as educators, a lot of times we're like, oh, I'll get another degree. That'll help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked into getting an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration. And I was like, that's not what I need. I need
Mm,
something very specific for what I
mm,
want to do. And I started my business before I left education. I was doing it part time on the side for a while. And when I decided to go full time, I hired several coaches. One very specifically to, up level my photography skills, to help me with my price,
yeah.
all things photography. And then another coach that really helped me with business mindset,
Mm-hmm.
tool set, things like that. I feel like there are a lot of people who have a great skill set that they want to use to grow a business, and then, but they don't know the tools, they don't know the business things, and they don't know the mindset. Oftentimes, if we're coming from a corporate place or a
Yeah.
very education structure, they're just different things to learn, which is exciting. And yeah, so I hired several coaches and built my business really quickly. So
Mm,
yeah.
okay. I see this a lot, and I'm gonna catch that a little bit because you pointed it out. Especially, I've noticed that, especially when it comes to creative businesses, talk about photography, filmmaking, artists, painting, music, something like that, right? There's so many people who want to make it as a business and want to do it for a living, and they're an amazing artist, but then
Yes.
that's where the metaphor, or that's where the saying of a starving artist comes in, right? Because
Yes.
so many people don't have that business mindset piece and the business strategies, and so that's why
Right.
they're struggling so much, even though they might be the most amazing artists, or one of the most amazing artists or musicians or whatever out there, because they don't have that business mindset piece. um, they're struggling. So I think
Yes.
that's very important to point out, and something that I would love for many people to hear, because I think it's very key.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And like I said, I have loved, like maybe I didn't say it, but I have loved photography for, since I was in high school. But I didn't know how to do something that I love, to have impact and income and make a difference for people. And then, after having some experience and working with some coaches and that kind of thing, I've been able to do it. And so I think it's really powerful. People think, oh, I have to do this on my own, similar to what you said you did with your,
Yeah,
emotional health journey, your mental health journey. You don't have to
yeah.
do it alone. Yeah. People to help. There are, a lot of opportunities to get support.
It's much easier and faster when you don't do it alone.
100%. Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah. How was your experience of getting the very first photography client?
Well, let's see. I like looking back, my very first photography client, I feel like it came in stages for me. There were,
Okay.
I did photo shoots where I didn't charge anything or where I charged very little. And then I started really attracting clients who really wanted that high touch experience. So when I was able to start doing that and creating an experience for people, and again, using my skills with, many years as a counselor and an educator to create
Mm,
an experience for people so that they could show up in front of the camera and see themselves in a way they'd never seen themselves, it was powerful for me and it was powerful for them. And when I think of my coaching clients, again, it's powerful for them and it's powerful for me. And what I know that I know is when I can have an impact like that, and I know that it's making a difference for somebody in their business, with, their family, with their life, like that brings me so much joy and it brings them so much joy that I feel like it's a perfect fit. And that's how I felt with my photography business as well.
mm. I like that you mentioned that you combined like the consulting skills into it as well, right? And the consulting experience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's that's lovely. So, what kind of photography do you do? Is it portrait? Is it um
What I do now mostly is I do the consulting with people with their brands. So
mm,
the photography is part of create building a business, creating a personal brand, headshots, as well as branding images for websites and that kind of thing. And then the consulting piece is the mindset and the tool set that we talked about, that really to get that business to the level where they want to be, where they want to have, that impact, influence, and income,
yeah.
that's going to sustain them.
Especially in the early stages, did you struggle with imposter syndrome at all?
Oh, I love talking about imposter syndrome because here's the thing. I don't think, yes, I did, but I don't
Okay.
really think imposter syndrome is a thing. A lot of people that talk about it.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
you're like, oh, here we go. We got a nugget. You're getting your fingers up underneath it. Yeah,
I love different perspectives, you know, and like different completely different opinions and mindsets. So yeah.
yeah.
It,
So I'll share a story with you. Back in the 1920s, when in the United States women were, the suffragette movement, where women were getting the right to vote and wanting to gather and get more women together so that women had the
mhm,
same rights as men. Actually, they didn't have the same rights as men. This is the 1920s, by the way.
mhm, mhm,
1920s, just over 100 years ago in the United States, women couldn't vote. And women started gathering, women started getting together, and they weren't on horses and they weren't waiting for a driver or for a man to drive them. They started riding bicycles. Now, I'm a big bicyclist, bicycler, I guess, myself. My husband and I ride a tandem bicycle, a bicycle built for two. And I also
Oh,
have
nice.
a couple, I also have a single bike. It's so much fun. We do bike packing. We're talking about doing some bike packing in Europe. We rode in Spain last
Do
year
it.
on, yeah. Oh yeah, we did last year. We were on
Oh, amazing.
yeah, anyway, okay. So anyway, I digress. So in the 1920s, women started riding bikes and they were gathering and they were, built talking and they were, getting together to talk about what can we do so that we can have the right to vote. But
Mm,
wait a minute, all of a sudden they have bicycle syndrome. They're showing up with bicycle syndrome. Their faces are turning red, they're sweaty, they're breathing deep, they're have bicycle syndrome, right? It's a thing. Air quotes, it's a thing. Well, what happens
okay.
when you ride a bicycle? You get sweaty, you get out of breath, your face gets red. It's just what happens when you ride a bike. So imposter syndrome to me is the same thing. It's
Mm,
when we're stepping out of our comfort zone and there's that fear of the unknown. It happens to everyone, and you know what? It happens to educated people more than people who are not. So bicycle
mm,
syndrome, not really a thing, right? Like I sweat, I get red, I start to breathe heavy. It's great. That's what happens when I ride a bike,
yeah.
right? You get scared, you're outside of your comfort zone, you're stretching, you might be on the verge of something big, you pull back. It's not a syndrome, it's not a thing. It just is what happens to people because where you've been has kept you safe and it's okay, right? Like what you've done to get to where you are is amazing and you have to do something else to get to the next place. So it's going to be a little scary, right? Like when you learn to drive or ride a bike or all of those things. Anyway, there you go. Imposter syndrome, not a thing. Just like bicycle syndrome, not a thing.
That's awesome. Okay, I love that. I actually, it's a good point to bring out because we had a little conversation, like a little touch on it as well with uh, the doctor from yesterday, about labels, right? And like when we start label, especially with heavy words like syndrome, it sounds so daunting. So it's, oh, I have this syndrome that is like I can't do anything about it. So when we start putting these heavy labels on things, um, that's where it can get kind of tricky. And I've noticed for some people it helps, but for I would say majority of people, even in mental health and other things, it kind of like is like, oh, maybe it can be an excuse or can be very heavy. It can, yeah. So okay, I love that. I actually love that.
And
Let
so
so
I've got to just interject something here. And I was talking with my community earlier today, and we flipped this. I'm afraid to. I'm ready. I'm ready.
mm,
Like let's have mastery of our words, which also gives us mastery of our mind, and that's courageous.
yeah,
Changing the way we speak to ourselves
yes,
is courageous action.
yes. Lovely that you point that out. I'm going to get to my technique or my little bit like very soon. But because you said that, I want to point out. I even yesterday I recommended this book to a client. What to say when you talk to yourself. I'm not sure who the author is. That kind of fell out of my head right now. But for self-talk and for reprogramming in your brain and the language, amazing book. I listened to the audio. It was really powerful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, very 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 good. In without labeling imposter syndrome, when you're starting a business, like you said, it's a part of it, right? It just kind of happens.
Yeah.
So if we go underneath it without the label, basically when you feel like you're not good enough and you don't think you can do this, how did your experience with that go, and what did you do?
So that's where I got really clear and really excellent, outstanding at my craft. I've been
Mm,
a counselor for 20 years. I have a master's degree. I've helped thousands of people. to get clarity about what they want, what their next steps are. Thousands. And so realizing that it's taking a moment and having time to reflect and have introspection of, you know what, I've helped a lot of people do really big things, I can, and then saying to myself, I can do this. I can learn, I can grow, I can change. It's part of who I am and it's part of what I value.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And yeah, kind of flipping what you focus on. I have a pretty similar approach. I have a pretty similar approach, I would say. I'll tell you, I'll tell it in like a form of a story. So when I was 19, or on the edge of 19 and 20, that's where like I was coming out of my depression and social anxiety, and I've been working on it for years and studying it for myself. So like I did years of work on that, and I overcame it bravely myself. Instead of being like shy in the corner, like shaking, oh my god, so many people, I was like talking to people on buses and meeting strangers, like sitting or like walking up to a group in a park. Hey guys, can I join you? And just like making friends anywhere in public. So I made a huge change, huge difference, right? And I was thinking, I want to start a business to help other people with mental health and social anxiety and building more confidence and kind of developing that mindset. And obviously, this came a lot from my parents, right? And it comes from society or parents or friends or whatever. But I kind of said like, I want to be a coach. I want to be a coach. I want to do this. And my very supportive mom was like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're a 19-year-old kid. You have no life experience. You don't know what you're talking about. There's nobody who's gonna listen to your life advice, let alone pay you for your life advice. What the hell? Get what are you even thinking, right?" I'm like, oh, thanks, mom, very supportive. Anyways, it held me back for a while, right? I started thinking, oh my god, I'm too young. I cannot do this yet. I don't have enough life experience. I haven't accomplished enough yet. So I have to become better. I have to accomplish this or this, maybe build a different business, and then I can start giving people life advice after I'm like rich and successful. And then I was trying different things and it didn't really work. I was trying like different business models, and then finally I got into a conversation with a coach, and I told her like this is what like a business and mindset coach, right? And I told her my story and I told her everything, and then I was like, well, okay, this is kind of what I'm doing and this is what I'm gonna try next. And she kind of stopped me like, okay, you're doing all of these things. What is it that you really want to do? I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I just really want to help people like with mindset and confidence as a coach, right? And specifically social anxiety. But like I'm too young, nobody's gonna listen to me now, so I need to do something different, and then I can do this. And she helped me interrupt the pattern on the call as well. But then she took me through this exercise that I've been doing since, and it's so simple, and it's a play with words as well. Literally, just sit down and answer, why are you good enough? My brain was focusing on all of these things. I'm too young, or I don't have enough life. I don't have much money. I didn't build a business yet, or didn't do this. Right? I was focusing on all of these reasons why I am not good enough. But like when I sat down and I wrote down, okay, why am I good enough to do this? And I
Yeah.
started coming up with reasons. Right? Oh, I studied psychology I self-studied psychology for 6 almost 7 years. Right. Well, that's a big reason, right? I overcame it myself. That's a big reason. I figured out this by myself. Oh, that's a big reason. And I started listing all of these reasons why I am good enough. And at that point, it's just like completely flipped. And I'm like, oh, well, there's no reason to feel not good enough anymore because like there's proof right here that I've
Exactly.
created. And yeah, so it's a play with words, but it's so simple because you literally just flip it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I agree with you 100%. It's simple, but it's not easy until you know. You need to know what you need to know. And you don't know what you don't need to know. Like you that idea that your mom put in your head, and I'm sure she was well-meaning, trying to be,
Oh yeah.
make yeah,
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah, and
She didn't mean harm.
yeah, she didn't mean to be, but yeah, I think having that awareness of look at all the things that I've done, look at all of the talent that I have, look at all that I've, already accomplished can be so powerful.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was one of the biggest. Even again, like it's so simple, and I love these tools or these little strategies or these little mindset shifts where it's like so simple that you can literally do it in the next 10 minutes, and it
Exactly.
really changes it, and it impacts you in a big way. So I love this one, and it's been a great one that I've taught to a bunch of other people when they're feeling experiencing this, because like you said, it's just a part of it, it's just how it goes.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable. You come up with one or two reasons, and then you're like, I don't really know. And then when you push through that, that's when it like really opens up.
absolutely.
mm. What do you see people have the biggest problems with when they're transitioning, or when they're starting a business, when they're kind of figuring these things out?
I think some of it is, what we've been talking about. And I think there are also a lot of, business skills and strategies, really, to becoming I mean, everything from becoming familiar with what are the things that I can do, what are the things that I am really good at, and how do I capitalize on those, networking, podcasting, YouTube. There are hundreds of ways to get our message out there. And then, what is it that you love, and how is that going to, continue to light you up? Because it's not easy to build a business, but it can be so satisfying. And if you're doing it in a way that your day-to-day activities, of course there are things you're not going to like, but if there are things that you're like, okay, well, I can do this because the ends, not that you do something unethical or anything like that, but it's like, if I have to do this to get to this, I can do that. And like is often said, when the world begins at the edge of our comfort zone, that's where life
mm,
begins. When we stretch past what we thought our comfort zone was.
yeah, the the world begins at the end of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Have you, in your life as well, but also through all of your life experience with working with people and consulting, and then in business as well, have you developed any frame frameworks or strategies for stress or overwhelm specifically, right? Because that's a big thing as well, that can, I think, impact people and hold people back. So how would you recommend people deal with stress or anxiety, overwhelm?
Well, we can, if we have a minute, we can do one of these practices that I share regularly with my clients and in my community. Do we have 2 minutes or?
Oh, yeah, 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 absolutely.
Okay.
We have about
Okay.
like
So
7 minutes left, I'd
okay.
say.
So what I do is I ask, and you can do this with me if you'd like, is to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And we think with our heads so much, and we have these brain centers in our heart and in our belly. And this is a really powerful way to reset ourselves and to get into our heart and our gut brain. So putting one hand on each, we can put our shoulders back and just put our chin down a tiny bit and take a nice deep breath in through the nose. We're going to inhale joy and exhale peace through our mouth, like we're exhaling through a straw. Take another breath, inhale abundance, exhale possibilities, inhale hope through the nose, and exhale surface. So, do you notice a shift in the way your body feels?
Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
there's lots of science around this. Stanford neuroscientists have done studies at, Tibetan monks and all around the world. There's research about this. And when we connect with our breath and then very specifically with our heart and with our gut, it shifts our perspective. We shift our body into something that's more productive and more powerful.
Mm, amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, that
Thank
it always feels really nice to reconnect with your breath. And I think especially the more you practice it, the easier and the better and more effective it
you.
becomes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We plant our feet on the floor too. I forgot to say that, but planting our feet on the floor and sitting up nice and
Mm,
tall is
grounding.
part of that as well. But
Mm,
yeah.
okay. Personally for you, what was the biggest challenge that you've overcome through this business journey specifically?
Mm. My biggest challenge in my business journey, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing for me, because I've always loved photography and always loved creating spaces for people to feel good, to look good, to do good, all of this. The hardest part for me was creating a pricing model that
Mm,
reflected the value of the service that I provided and that I still provide. It's not a problem now, but it was a problem at first for me. I worked in an industry, the education industry, where there's in the U.S. teachers are not paid very well, and that adds to stress and anxiety. And once I worked through that, it was a game changer. A lot of things changed for me, and I was able to build my business on this very strong foundation and serve a lot of people.
yeah. Mm, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that's an important one as well. And for me, it was huge, like dealing with money blocks and
Yeah,
some like, oh, I don't deserve to get this much money, or I don't, I'm not worthy, or whatever, or um, even just not understanding money itself at all. And I
yeah,
think money itself is a big conversation that I think a lot of entrepreneurs specifically, but I would say even everybody should really learn because
I
that
agree.
can cause
Yeah,
a lot of stress. Oh my gosh, so much. I've seen it in my family, and I was like, that was one of the reasons why I became an entrepreneur. And it was like, okay, I need to do something different because like I don't want to end up like this. I don't want to live like this. So I need to do something different.
absolutely. Yeah, if you don't like the way something is, do
Go out
something
and
different to
yeah,
get a different
uh,
result. Yeah,
yeah. I like the quote of if nothing changes, nothing changes.
yeah,
So if you don't like it, you have to change it. It's not just by itself gonna get better. Like we actually have to go out there and create it, make it better. Go outside of your comfort zone a lot, right? And
yes.
figure out new ways, figure out new things. Okay. Amazing. What a great conversation this has been. Thank you for sharing your story and your insights. I really enjoyed it.
Thank
And I
you. I
think it was
enjoyed it
very
as well. I
valuable.
appreciate it.
Would you have any closing remarks or statements that you want to leave people with?
Well, I think what you just said about nothing changes, nothing changes. And I would invite people to reach out and I've got a complimentary call. I think you'll put my website and
Yes.
I've got I've got a clarity compass
Ooh.
that comes with the call. So no charge. It's a gift because I feel like the more people who can really know what they want in the world and live in the world that we're all meant to live in these big brilliant and beautiful lives, and the more people that do that, like, the world needs more people who are living their life purpose, and that's what I love to do. So
Mm.
yeah.
Who specifically is the best to reach out? or like if somebody's watching and they're like, so they know like, okay, I absolutely have to reach out to Julie right now.
Yeah. I would say it's an entrepreneur either who is just starting out, who really wants to make a big impact, or someone who's ready to, double or triple their where they are right now, the amount of people they serve, the money they make. Those are the two types of entrepreneurs who can really benefit from reaching out to me. And again, it's a no nonsense call. There's no charge. It's We do it on Zoom too. So I serve people around the world. I've offered workshops in Spain, and yeah, so
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Amazing. All right. And yeah, so I hope we can stay in touch. And actually,
Hey,
in 1 or 2 minutes, what's next for you?
what's next for me is growing this business. 10xing my consulting and coaching business is really where I am right now.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Have you thought
serving
about
more.
Have you thought about writing a book, maybe?
Yep, yep. I've
Yeah.
I've
All
got a
right.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, do you already have a book, or is it coming?
I'm, I'm sorry.
Do you already have a book, or is it coming?
It's coming. It's
Okay.
coming. Yeah,
Amazing. So I'm not sure when or how when your book is out, we can definitely have, or even before, maybe a couple months later, we can have like another conversation. We can have, I'm sure, deeper conversations, deeper topics. I really enjoyed this, so I would love to stay in touch.
I
And
agree. Thank you.
thank you for sharing your insights. And yeah,
Thanks. Have a
that's it.
great day.
Have a great night. Bye bye.